Good evening and welcome. I'm Kathy Thompson, President of the Red Clay School District Board of Education. The board is thankful you have come out tonight and grateful to have you here. The August 19, 2020 board meeting of the Red Clay School District is called to order. It is 7:01 p.m. This meeting is being held electronically. On March 12, 2020, Governor Carney issued a declaration of a state of emergency for the state of Delaware due to a public health threat. The state of emergency allows all public meetings of executive branch bodies, including the boards of education, to be conducted electronically, either by means of telephone, conference call, or video conference call. The information regarding this meeting, including information on how to access the meeting electronically, was published on August 6, 2020 on the Red Clay School District website under the Public Notices section. Individuals may participate in this meeting via Zoom conferencing and may speak by completing the public comment form available and submitting it at least 1/2 hour prior to the start of the meeting. This is the 6th time we've held an electronic board meeting using Zoom, and we thank you for your continued support and patience as we all continue to encounter new issues and work through details. We learn something new each electronic meeting, and we get better with each meeting and experience. You'll notice that this meeting is a Zoom webinar, and so throughout the meeting, you will, even in gallery view, you will see the board, but you will not see the participants unless they've signed up to speak. So it's going to be a little different experience than what we've had in the past. Everybody is muted except for the board members, all of whom are unmuted throughout the meeting. As mentioned last time, if you signed up to speak, your Zoom name must be what you put into the public comment form you completed in order to be recognized to speak. The school board members are unmuted throughout the meeting. In order to maximize the effectiveness and orderliness of this meeting, we ask the following. We'll start the meeting, but we don't have to start with a roll call because we can see everybody. So that's a little different this time. We will have a roll call vote for each action item to be voted on. During items submitted by the board or board discussion, we ask board members to indicate that they have questions or comments so we can order the people so that we all speak one at a time. Each board member should identify themselves by name prior to speaking. And as everyone knows, the meeting is being recorded. So we start, as we always do, with our Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So now we proceed with the agenda approval. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Dr. Bohm moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Casper seconds. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, Maria will take a roll call vote, please.
Dr. Bohm?
Yes.
Mr. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
You're muted. Jose, you're muted. Jose, there you go.
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Dr. Newton?
Yes.
Ms. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote, motion carries.
Okay, great. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Green.
Thank you, Madam President. We're now before us on the agenda item for reorganization of the Board of Education. At each annual meeting, the school board shall elect one of its members as president and another member as vice president, who in the absence or disability of the president shall act instead. At this time, the floor will entertain nominations for president for the Red Clay Consolidated School District Board of Education. Is there a nomination?
Yes, I would like to ask Kathy Thompson to be our president.
A motion has been made
Second.
that Kathy Thompson serve as the president for the Red Clay School District Board of Education. Are there any other nominations? May we have a vote?
Dr. Bohm?
No.
Mr. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Newton,
Yes.
Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson,
Yes.
6 yes, 1 no, motion carries.
At this time, the floor will entertain nominations for Vice President of the Red Clay School District Consolidated School Board of Education. Is there a nomination?
Yes, I nominate Mr. Wilson.
A motion has been made that Mr. Wilson serve as the Vice President of the Red Clay Consolidated School Board. Are there any other nominations? May we have a vote?
Nobody-
There a second?
There wasn't a second.
There
Right.
needs to be a
Second.
second.
I'm
Is there a
sorry,
second?
second.
Mr. Casper,
Yes, I apologize. I thought I seconded.
okay. Dr. Bohm,
No.
Mr. Casper,
Yes,
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Newton,
Yes.
Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson,
Yes.
6 yes, 1 no, motion carries.
At this time, a motion is needed to appoint the superintendent as the executive secretary of the school board. Is there a motion?
so moved.
Jason Casper,
Yes,
Second, this is Jose Matthews.
We have a vote.
Dr. Bohm,
Yes.
Mr. Casper,
yes,
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Newton,
Yes.
Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson,
Yes.
unanimous vote, motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Maria. At this time, I now turn the meeting back over to Board President Kathy Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Green. So the next item of business is the school board committee assignments and, hold on. There it goes. There it is. So we need to fill our different committees. So let's take them one at a time. The Board Policy Review Committee, is there anybody that wants to serve on it? I do. Board Policy, I know it's me. Anybody else?
I would like to.
Ashley?
Yes.
Anybody else? Because we can do a max of 3. Okay.
I'm sorry, Kathy, who was the first one?
Kathy and Ashley, Maria.
Okay,
Okay.
yes.
The next one is Code of Conduct Committee. Anybody want to serve on that?
I usually do if there's an issue. So you can put Faith down.
I have said on that before. I'm good with that.
And I'd like to as well, unless somebody else wants to. Okay, so Maria, we have for that Faith, Jason, and Kathy.
Okay,
Next is the CFRC. I want to be a member of that.
Me as well.
Pardon me?
I would like to be a member.
Oh, Martin, okay. Anybody else? Okay, so we have Kathy and Martin on the CFRC. Diversity Committee. Who wants to be a member of diversity?
I'd like to be on that one, Kathy. This is
Ashley,
I would.
Martin,
I'll be on the committee.
who was that? Was that Adriana?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So Maria, we have Ashley, Martin, and Adriana on diversity. Dropout prevention,
Yes. Martin.
that's Martin, okay. I'd like to be on that too. Anybody else? Okay, so for dropout prevention, we have Kathy and Martin and Kathy. Facilities,
This is Jose Matthews. I'd like to be on facilities.
Jose,
Martin,
Martin. Anybody else?
I've done that in the past. If nobody else, I don't want to step on any toes, but if nobody else wants it, I'll do that. Good, continue.
That's good. Jason. So Maria, I have Jose, Martin, and Jason for facilities. Then we have wellness,
I'd like to be on that one, Kathy.
Ashley.
Yes.
Okay. I'll be on it, hearing nobody else. Anybody else? Okay, so Maria, I have Kathy and Ashley. And then the RCEF, Red Clay Education Foundation.
nobody, I'll be,
I can do that one.
Jason,
Martin.
Martin. And I'd like to as well, unless somebody else wants to. Okay, so that's Jason, Martin, and Kathy. So I think we have our committees, our board committees filled out. Anybody want to add anything or change anything before we finalize? Okay, hearing nothing. Then we go to the DSBA Board of Directors and Legislative Members. So who would like to be on the DSBA Board of Directors?
I've done it in the past. I enjoy it, but again, if anybody would like to take a turn,
I'm okay being an alternate, Jason. You can,
okay.
Jason,
But again, is there anybody else that would like that? I'm not trying to monopolize on it. It's a valuable, involvement, but
it is. It does require going back and forth to Dover. So you
it
just have
does.
to know that.
Yeah.
Because the meetings are down in Dover. Okay, so Jason will be the Board of Director member and I will be the alternate. And then there's the DSBA Legislative Committee.
nobody else wants it? Did somebody speak up?
Only you, Martin.
All right, no, if nobody else wants to do that, I'll do it.
Okay. Martin. And then the alternate, I mean, I'm happy to do it unless you want to, Jason. It's up to you.
Again, matters not. I mean, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So we got that. Okay, I think we have those covered. Anybody else want to change anything? Okay, so I think we're covered there. So we've got that taken care of. Next, we move on to recognitions. So the floor is Ms. Taylor Green's. There she is, coming in. You're muted, Taylor, unless you need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Can everyone hear me?
Now we can.
Okay,
Hi, Taylor.
we're good?
Yes.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. And tonight we have the pleasure of honoring several members of the Red Clay family for recent achievements. Many of our honorees are tuning in this evening with their friends and family, so please be sure to join me in giving them a big virtual round of applause when it's time. So first up, Andrew Vidal, a teacher at Cap Calloway School of the Arts, has been named the 2020 Delaware History Teacher of the Year, an award presented annually by the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History. The award highlights the crucial importance of history education by honoring exceptional American history teachers from elementary school through high school. Andrew is a teacher at Cap Calloway, where he has been a member of the faculty since 2014. He received his Bachelor of Arts in History Education from the University of Delaware and is currently pursuing his Master of Arts in American History from Pace University and the Gilder Lehrman Institute. As a teacher and learner, Andrew values growth, reflection, and purpose in learning. He has developed project-based curricula in all of his courses to emphasize student voice, choice, research, and collaboration. Instruction should not be designed for one group of students, says Andrew. It must be pliable enough for students of all backgrounds and include opportunities for authentic experiences in their learning. In addition to a $1,000 honorarium, Andrew's school will receive a core archive of American history books and Gilder Lehrman educational materials and recognition at a ceremony in Delaware. Let's give a big round of applause to Andrew.
Congratulations, Andrew.
Okay, next we're celebrating 4 Red Clay schools and their dedicated staff and athletic teams for earning the Dale Farmer State Champions in Sportsmanship Award from the Delaware Interscholastic Athletic Association, or DIAA. Congratulations to the following schools: the Charter School of Wilmington and its outstanding athletic department, Conrad Schools of Science with a special shout out to Athletic Director Pat Williamson, former Assistant Athletic Director Monica Malin, and Assistant Athletic Director Rob Naylor. Delaware Military Academy, shout out to Athletic Director Jeremy Jean. And Thomas McCain High School, with a shout out to Sportsmanship Committee Chairperson Linda Bailey, Athletic Director Matt Carr, and Assistant Principal Supervising Athletics Reggie Worlds. Congratulations to all of these schools. And last but not least, we have several folks to celebrate for supporting student success through federal education programs in our schools. The National Association of Federal Education Program Administrators, or NAFEPA for short, has awarded 4 Red Clay leaders as 2020 NAFEPA Leadership Award winners. Congratulations to Karin Jakubowski of North Star Elementary School, Kenny Oates from Red Clay's Special Services Team, Julie Rumschlag of Cab Calloway School of the Arts, and Damon Saunders of the John Dickinson School. In addition, NAFEPA offers 4 scholarships annually. That's just 4 students in the entire nation. And not surprisingly, one of those students is right here at Red Clay. And tonight we're thrilled to celebrate her success. So congratulations to Teresa Ryan of Conrad Schools of Science for earning the 2020 Elizabeth Pinkerton Scholarship. Also, thank you to Irene Hills for representing our state with NAFEPA year after year. Congratulations to all of our NAFEPA winners.
Thank you very much, Taylor, and congratulations to all our winners. Congratulations to Mr. Bedell. Congratulations to Charter School of Wilmington, Conrad Schools of Science, Delaware Military Academy, and Thomas McCain High School. The Sportsmanship Award is a big deal. And to all the NAFEPA award winners, our administrators as well as our students. That's really impressive. Congratulations. Okay, so now we get to public comment. And again, thank you for coming out tonight to attend our meeting and share your thoughts. Under Board Policy 2006, the board encourages the staff and community to share concerns regarding school issues and educational programs. Sharing can be done verbally, in writing, and by speaking at the meeting. Under 2006, the board shall provide a time period of up to 30 minutes at each board meeting for public comments, which may be extended at the board's discretion. Speakers are requested to give a written copy of their remarks to the superintendent. Speakers are limited to a 3-minute time period. The time will be monitored by Mr. Tony Clements, you will see the time period run on the screen, and at 3 minutes you will be muted. A speaker whose message contains vulgarity, abrasive, or abusive language will forfeit time to speak. The board encourages speakers with comments about specific individuals to share them with the superintendent, who shall provide the speaker with the procedure for submitting such remarks, but will permit public comments that are in compliance with this policy. And the board generally shall not respond directly to a speaker at a public meeting. We've typically requested our superintendent to follow up with speakers. So with that, I believe we have 14 speakers. So may I have a motion from the board to extend the public comment period for the duration of each speaker to speak 3 minutes?
So, second.
Dr. Bohm. Moved by Dr. Bohm, seconded by Mr. Casper. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Maria, can you please take a roll call vote?
Dr. Bohm,
Yes.
Mr. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
Newton, Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Wilson, and
Yes.
Ms. Thompson. Unanimous vote,
Okay,
motion carries.
thank you. So our first speaker is Miss Julie Guarnieri. Welcome. There she is. There
Can
you
you
are.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. I am a parent speaking tonight in support of the hybrid return to school. I am also a home health physical therapist and have been dealing with infection prevention and virus transmission risks since the start of the pandemic. I support the return to school for in-person instruction in a hybrid model with an online-only option for those that feel it is not safe for their child. I would like to see an in-person return as quickly as possible. I am wondering what happens after the 6 weeks of remote-only instruction. Does the hybrid plan phase in automatically, or is it a fluid decision? Since Governor Carney has already announced hybrid instruction is safe based on objective data, including low community spread and low hospitalizations, what objective metrics will Red Clay be using as a benchmark to safely return to the classroom? The COVID data in Delaware continues to significantly improve even since Governor Carney's announcement that schools can reopen in a hybrid model. Our percent positive rate has been consistently below 5%, and now hospitalizations are down to the low 30s in the entire state. Most of our local economy has opened up successfully with health measures in place for the last few months without significant COVID transmission. It is vital to return our children to the classroom for in-person instruction, and we owe it to them to get this accomplished as quickly as possible. If not now, then when? Our numbers are so low currently in Delaware, and we also have the weather on our side to utilize outdoor space and open windows. We will not get to zero with COVID anytime soon. It could literally be years. Delawareans have learned to coexist with COVID and minimize the risk to our health in most aspects of our economy. And now it is time to do the same with schools. Education is essential to the children in our community. We will not be able to eliminate the risk of COVID transmission in schools, but we can minimize the risk. There is inherent risk in every activity we participate in. There's a risk every time I get in the car, every time I put my child on the school bus, every time my child walks through the door of the school. But I accept that risk because the risk of not going to school is much higher. The American Academy of Pediatrics has supported a return to in-person instruction, citing an increase in negative health effects from children being out of school last spring, including increased depression, anxiety, and suicide among our children. Why is Red Clay listening to the teachers union recommendation based on a biased subjective survey instead of science and data by the CDC and public health departments? I am asking the Red Clay administration and school board to set clear objective guidelines based on the science and data provided by the state and public health department to allow a hybrid return for in-person instruction immediately after the stated 6 weeks of remote-only education. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guarnieri. Thank you. And I believe that Iyad Mustafa and Mario Rivera are not present. So with that, we go to Ms. Christy Gallagher-Kriesel. Welcome, Ms. Gallagher-Kriesel. I don't see anyone yet. I do see a Juliana Romer. I don't know if that's the same person. Ms. Romer, you need to unmute yourself.
She's not here either, Kathy.
Oh, she's not here. Okay. So Ms. Christy Gallagher-Kriesel is not here. So the next is Ms. Ronnie Baltazar Lopez. Welcome. Welcome.
Good evening, sorry.
Okay, Mr. Ronnie.
Yes.
Sorry
Good evening,
about
Red.
that.
No, you're fine. Good evening, Red Clay School Board members. My name is Ronnie Baltazar Lopez, and I'm the Vice President of the Milford School Board. I am on this Zoom chat tonight to provide public comment because I noticed that the board is considering enacting a policy to allow a student representative to join you moving forward. We in the Milford School District enacted a policy in 1972, allowing one student representative to join us on the board. Our policy allows one high school junior or one high school senior with approval by the high school principal and student council president to attend all board meetings. The student representative is encouraged to participate in our discussions that are applicable to students such as programs, curriculum, extracurricular activities, and student rights. However, in accordance with state laws of the state of Delaware, the student rep does not have any voting rights and cannot participate in any matters considered in executive session. As a board member making educational decisions that affect students, I think it is imperative that they have a voice whenever possible. We pride ourselves in our relationships with our students, and we believe that our policy here in Milford allows students on our board, which provides equity and serves as a liaison to the students in our district. So quickly, I just wanted to thank you all for allowing me to comment. And while I do not know the majority of you on this board, I thought this was a great opportunity to introduce myself and provide some feedback on the decision you will be making tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baltazar Lopez. And next is Miss Kate Clemis. Welcome, Miss Clemis.
Good evening, members of the Red Clay School Board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Thank you for the chance to speak tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm Kate Clemis. I'm the Vice Chair of the Charter School of Wilmington Board. Last July, members of our administration and board met with 3 brave students who wanted to share their personal experience at Charter that wasn't what we had hoped and expected for our students. Their courageous words started a year-long journey at the Charter School of Wilmington that is far from done. Over the last 12 months, we've spent time with many in our school and community exploring and seeking to understand. For us, the first step was listening and learning. As one of our initial actions, we invited students, parents, families, staff, and community members, including one of the recently honored Delaware Women of the Century, B.B. Coker, to share their views with us. These dedicated folks helped bring forward ideas and propose action steps to the Charter School of Wilmington administration. We also held several town halls, facilitated working sessions with our community, and provided professional development sessions with our teachers and administrative staff. Our board expects to roll out our next steps to our school community next month. As our school pulled together to tackle one of the hardest issues confronting our country today, there are some who tried to tear us down. During our August 5th public board meeting, a heinous act of hateful speech interrupted our Zoom call. We were shocked and saddened by this outrageous attack and turned over information on it to local law enforcement in hopes that the perpetrators will be identified. It is difficult to anticipate how people will react in the aftermath of such an attack. Some chose to post recordings of the aftermath on social media, and some were wrong in how they reacted to comments in the session. That too was disappointing. Our sincerest apologies to everyone who witnessed this horrendous display. Charter School of Wilmington will continue to focus our attention on healing our community and moving forward constructively on this crucial work we started over a year ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clemis. Next, we have Izzy Sarmad. Welcome. Mr. Sarmad?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome,
Okay.
Mr. Sarmad.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'd like to share my screen if I could. I don't exactly know how to do that.
I think it's disabled. I don't believe we allow
Yeah.
screen sharing.
Okay. Well, what I wanted to discuss today is that I highly urge you to continue distance learning. I wanted to show you a very cogent argument as to why that is. First of all, I'm a professor of Homeland Security, among other academic hats that I wear. This pandemic I projected to last anywhere from 5 years to 10 years. That said, if you let kids back to school, what's going to happen is these become hotbeds of points of transmission. It gives the virus a place to jump to the next person. There are two screens that I would have liked to show you. The other one, the first one is from Johns Hopkins. We've seen this map already where they keep a track of how many infections are nationwide. The other one that I wanted to show you is the breakdown of strains that are infecting different parts of the country. You have at least about 20 strains that are separate in their inception into the communities that are attacking the entire country. So what happens when you let kids just rush back to school, someone that took a trip to California or Florida, they come back and they bring a brand new strain that you previously have not been exposed to. Now that strain can now infect all over again this area that we're at. Some strains are mild and some are very, very terrible. They just found a new strain in Malaysia that's 20 times more deadly than anything we've seen before. So this is a biological weapon. If the Trump administration hasn't told you this before, it's a biological weapon meant to kill and destabilize people. If we blindly submit our kids back to a place where the virus can ping pong and continue its spread, you're going to see dead kids and you're going to see dead teachers, and some of these people you cannot replace. As a matter of fact, I don't think any person that dies, we can bring them back, so we can't. So anyone that says, let's just have our kids go back to school, they don't understand the dynamics of how the pandemic is actually continuing to roll. We have 328 million people in this country. Currently infected is maybe about 2 million, about 2% of the population. So we're just starting this pandemic. Please continue to have distance learning, because for the next, I'd say 4 to 5 years, that's what you're going to need to do. Even if you don't remember me, please remember the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sarmat, and perhaps you could send that to Mr. Green. Mr. Green, would you like to get that material?
Or feel free to send it to my office.
Yes, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my understanding is that Ms. Snyder and Ms. Levance, Ms. John are not here. So the next speaker is Ms. Kayatanya John. Welcome, Ms. John. Coming in. I believe you need to unmute, Ms. John.
Hello?
Hello, now we hear you.
Okay, I got completely kicked out. My apologies.
No problem.
My son is here, Levance Jr.
Oh, he is? Okay, we didn't know that. So maybe after you, he'll speak?
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Red Clay family, for allowing me to have a few words. I just want to thank Superintendent Green and everyone that worked with him for making the right decision for the right time. It's very difficult to service our children virtually. I believe in our teachers. We have wonderful staff, and I believe that they will do the best that they can with what we're working with. I do, however, understand my son has autism. He's in an autism program. There will be some things that will be very difficult for him facing a regular curriculum via online. I just pray that there's a lot of compassion and understanding and patience for our special needs kids. And if possible, if they can have some type of one-on-one intervention when needed, that would be really important for some of our students. I know we can't have large crowds in the building, but if it's possible at all, that we can have the counselors having some type of face-to-face meeting, because social skills are diminishing every day. In the autism program, the most important thing is them developing their social skills. And being separated like this, for some kids, point blank, is catastrophic. It's really damaging for them. It's very difficult. I just want to thank you. I appreciate all that everyone is doing. Everyone is in my prayers. Please stay safe out there. This pandemic is real. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Miss John. And is your son there, Miss John? Because
Yes, he is.
So Tony, we might want to reset the clock, and then Mr. Levance John Jr. will speak. Welcome, Mr. John.
Hello, my name is Levance John. Thank you for letting me do public comment. I am a junior at Thomas McCain High School. Like my mom just stated before, I am in the autism program. And every day I wonder how our needs will be met during online school. For me, it was always the one-on-one support that got me through school. Freshman and sophomore year, while I was still in school, during lunch, I would go to a teacher's room to get extra help on a worksheet that I didn't understand, or I would go to my counselor, Miss Wagner's room during lunch when I didn't understand. But as soon as online school started, I didn't really get a lot of that, and people were kind of racing around the place. So I wonder what's going to happen this year. I know teachers are doing their best. They can't, I don't expect too much, but if certain needs can be met, then that's perfectly fine for me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for speaking, Mr. John. We appreciate it. So next is Miss Ann Budashak. Welcome, Miss Budashak. You're muted. Unmute yourself. There you go.
I got it. Can everybody hear me
Yeah.
now? Great. So I appreciate that Red Clay is approaching remote learning in a much more organized and thoughtful fashion this fall. As an educator and a former DSEA member, I support the district's decision to respect its teachers' wishes by beginning the school year remotely. I do struggle with the inequity. Public schools can't open, but private facilities can operate expensive learning pods for those same K-5 students. School sports can't practice, but private leagues have been operating all summer and will continue to operate into the fall. If you can pay, you can play. But remote learning it is, so remote learning I'll accept. We've received very little information about how the first 6 weeks of school will work, despite the first day being less than 3 weeks away. However, based upon the email the district disseminated via principals this week, it appears elementary age students will be required to attend synchronous learning sessions daily, and that I cannot accept. As per the email I received from my rising first graders principal, remote learning will happen Monday through Friday. Synchronous Zoom sessions for first graders at my son's school will be held daily, sometime between 8:45 a.m. and 2 p.m. According to the email, consistent attendance, participation in learning activities, and completion of assignments are critical to my child's success with remote learning. Attendance and participation will be monitored and my students' work will be graded. I'm sure many of you, both on the board and watching from home, are thinking, that sounds wonderful. Daily Zooms, daily live interaction with the teacher, fantastic. And I'm sure it is for many families. They want and need this synchronous structure. Many children need the face-to-face time with their teachers in order to experience success. And on behalf of those students, I'm grateful. But I'd venture to guess that for every parent who's rejoicing at the news of this synchronous structure, there's another parent who's wondering how they're going to make this work. how they're going to get their young child logged into Zoom and focus on academics at dictated mandatory times every day while simultaneously juggling all of their other 1,000,001 responsibilities. Siblings don't care when brothers or sisters have scheduled Zooms. Infants need to be fed, preschoolers need to be dropped off and picked up from preschool, middle and high schoolers need help with their demanding schedules. Bosses and clients and parents' own students, which is ironic, do not care when a 6-year-old Zoom is scheduled. And frankly, I don't care when my 6-year-old Zoom is scheduled either. My husband and I are fortunate. We're both educators with flexible schedules this fall. We recognize that we're first world probleming the situation right now, while many, many, many families absolutely cannot adhere to synchronous learning schedules. We probably could, but we won't, because it's not in the best interest of our child, and it's not best teaching practice for online learning. Thank you. And my other half's over here.
Yeah, and now Mr. Corey Budashak, welcome.
So I can talk in this screen. I'm logged in a different one as well. But so my wife and I have a lot of experience teaching online across a variety of grade levels and ages. In addition to the logistical concerns we have with this synchronous remote learning structure, which my wife went over, we're also very concerned because we know online learning, in which all students are expected to engage synchronously and only synchronously, is not best teaching practice. And we don't know the exact plans for the fall. We hope we can learn more in the coming weeks, but we're worried that it's going to be only synchronous and that's it. So there's a misconception that online learning means moving the instruction you would normally deliver in the classroom online. Online learning is not that simple. It's a beast of its own, with its own set of best practices. It involves a balance of synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities. The time teachers get to spend working with their students is always precious and too short, even more so in a remote learning environment. So how is that face-to-face time best spent? It's best spent with the teachers delivering direct instruction via live Zooms? Absolutely not. Students are much better off consuming the direct instruction by watching pre-recorded video lessons or completing warm-up activities. Live Zoom times should be for wrestling with difficult content, addressing students' questions, and offering support in real time as they work through assigned problems. Asynchronous learning also allows teachers to more easily differentiate instruction. Students who are struggling to meet grade level expectations can be provided with lessons that remediate their gaps in learning. Students who have mastered the content can be provided with lessons that stretch and challenge their thinking. Differentiation of this nature should have been happening in the classroom, and it should continue to happen remotely. Synchronous learning is very important and should be available. Students should have live access to their teachers if or when they need them. But this should not be the sole or even primary mode of instruction. Asynchronous learning in the form of pre-recorded lessons or activities with assignments that can be completed on a family's own terms throughout the week affords the families the flexibility they deserve, while providing students with the information and educational opportunities they need. I'd also like to note that there's no need for the district or its teachers to reinvent the wheel. There are plenty of asynchronous learning modules available online. The district already holds licenses to several, and many additional quality programs are free. These programs have teacher dashboards that monitor student success. We will support our children as they learn from home. We only ask that you allow us to choose when and how, and required synchronous meeting times do not give us this flexibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Budashak. Next is Mr. Stephen Fackenthal. Welcome, Mr. Fackenthal.
Am I on?
Yes, you're
oh,
on.
All right. It went in and out for a second. All right, I'm getting used to this. Good evening, board. My name is Steve Fackenthal, music teacher at Ritchie Elementary and vice president of the Red Clay Education Association. On behalf of RCEA, I'm simply here to welcome everyone to the 2020-2021 school year. Our first virtual new hire event was extremely successful, and we would like to thank Christine Smith for the seamless transition Tuesday morning. While this year will certainly be challenging, our educators are committed to working with students and families to make this a successful school year, regardless of setting. So I appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fackenthal. And last but certainly not least is Miss Kathleen Testa. Welcome, Miss Testa.
Can't hear her.
No, she's on mute. Ms. Testa, I think you need to unmute yourself. Ms. Testa is still muted. Tony and Maria,
Is there a way to unmute her?
I'm not sure if that's because the person came in just as Kathy, so I'm not sure if that's the person. So
Okay. So we may not have Ms. Testa.
correct.
Her name should be Kathleen. Just Kathleen.
There is no one under that name.
There's no Kathleen.
She was there earlier, but I guess she's gone. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then I guess we move on. Thank you, everyone, for the public comment. So we move on to approval of the minutes. And the first is the approval of the July 8, 2020 executive session minutes. Is there a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Who was that?
Martin.
Martin. Mr. Wilson. Is there a second?
Second, this is Jose Matthews.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Why don't we do a voice vote, and if there's a no, then we'll do roll call. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes pass. The next is the minutes of the July 8th, 2020 regular session. Is there a motion to accept them?
So moved.
That's Dr. Bohm. Is there a second?
Second, this is Jose Matthews.
Mr. Matthews seconds. So I have are there any comments? I know I have a comment on these. If there aren't any others, I'll go. So the way in which the advisory committee was represented in here, it really was a committee on the SROs, and I think the minutes need to accurately reflect them. And it was all looking at the SROs in the district.
That was my understanding.
Okay, so with that amendment, is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
So moved. Dr.
Second.
Bohm and
Mr. Matthews, second.
Matthews.
okay. Let's do a voice vote, and if there's a no, we'll do a roll call. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It carries. Okay. So, whoop. I didn't mean to print that. Sorry, let me get rid of this. Okay, and then the last one is the approval of the August 3rd, 2020 special board meeting. Is there a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Dr. Bohm moves. Is there a second?
Second, this is Jose Matthews.
Jose seconds. Mr. Matthews seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, they pass. Next, we move on to the action items. So the first, it's the recommendation of the Red Clay Board of Education. It's a recommendation that the Red Clay Board of Education approve the fiscal year 21 preliminary budget as submitted. Is there a motion?
So move.
Mr. Wilson moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Casper seconds. Any discussion? Both the budget and Jill's presentation from last month are present.
And
Okay, hearing no discussion, let's take a roll call vote on this, Maria, since they're action items.
Okay. Dr. Bohm,
Yes.
Mr. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Newton,
Yes.
Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes,
Unanimous vote, motion carries.
thank you. And Mr. Green, do you want to handle this one?
yes, it is the
Okay.
recommendation that the Red Clay School Board approve Denise Parks as the assistant principal at Cab Calloway School of the Arts commencing August 20, 2020, as submitted.
Is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Mr. Casper moves. Is there a second?
So moved.
Mr. Wilson seconds. Any discussion? Okay, we will need a roll call vote on this one, Maria, please.
Dr. Bohm,
Yes.
Mr. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Newton,
Yes.
Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes,
Unanimous vote, motion carries.
Congratulations to Dr. Parks. Welcome to Red Clay.
yeah, welcome to Red Clay, congratulations, that's right. Then on to the consent agenda. It's the recommendation that the Red Clay Board of Education approve consent agenda items A to D as submitted. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Dr. Newton moves. Is there a second?
Second.
That's Mr. Wilson seconds. Maria, please take a roll call vote.
Dr. Bohm,
Yes.
Mr. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes.
Dr. Newton,
Yes.
Ms. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes,
Unanimous vote, motion carries.
and then we're on, Mr. Green, you're up for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam President. So thank you, members of the board, staff, guests, members of the community. Thank you to all of those who took the time out to give us a public comment on a very challenging and tough issue before us as a school community as it relates to the reopening of our schools and what that ultimately looks like. We made the decision to reopen remotely for the 6-week restart for a number of reasons, and that reason solely wasn't based on supporting our educators, but it's also the need to continue to weigh the science, to really look at the logistics and all that actually goes into having a safe reopening. We know that the state issued its guidance about a month or so ago relative to 3 reopening scenarios. And since that point in time, there was been a lot of advocacy from the state on us reopening in a hybrid learning fashion. And while we understand that the hybrid learning fashion provides some level or some sense of in-person, remote, and this notion of hybrid, each community across the state, across the nation has been defining what hybrid means to those local communities. For us, and really looking at phase 1, again, all schools are offering remote learning for the first 6 weeks. We have stepped up our technology and our support for technology, ensuring that each family, K to 12, will receive a device. And not only that, we're being supportive in ensuring that each of our families or households who may have challenges or support with internet connectivity, that we'll be providing them with those supports as well. But in the state's guidance, again, we're in scenario 2, which basically, again, means you can have some sense of in-person, remote, or a hybrid fashion. There's a lot of logistical challenges with hybrid. Chief among them are still ongoing concerns and issues relative to transportation. As it would stand now, we probably have approximately 231 additional bus runs that we would literally have to cut in half to meet the state's requirements of ensuring that there's 1 child per seat on a school bus. We know that all of our middle schools and high schools serve a large population within the city of Wilmington and our urban areas that have to go out to our suburban areas. We have 3-tier runs that continue to pose challenges as it relates to transportation. And so again, 6 weeks is not just time to start remotely, but it's again time for us to continue to work out a lot of the logistical factors for those families who wish and want to have some semblance of in-person. Within this phase, again, as you know, you received a questionnaire from your respective schools as it relates to those families who want access to in-person when we feel and know that it's safe to open, which again, phasing in that process beyond that 6-week period. We've also scaffolded that timeline. Again, principals sent families a back to school letter yesterday, and in that letter was school-based questionnaires. That's an opportunity because we realize our school-wide survey, our district-wide survey, really didn't drill down to the individual grade level. It didn't drill down to the individual school, where we know we may have additional capacity issues depending on the individual circumstances of our families. Families will be asked again to complete that survey by August 24th. For those surveys who aren't responded to, our schools will do their due diligence to reach out to those families, again, to ensure that their responses are captured. Teachers will send families their welcome letter with more class details and information as it relates to both synchronous and asynchronous opportunities. Families will receive the Red Clay Back to School Starter Kit in the mail on or around August 28th or 29th. That information will provide you with everything you need to know from your Schoology accounts, your home access accounts, all of the technical aspects of what you will need to remain and stay engaged. Chromebooks and elementary school supplies and other materials will be distributed at schools. So again, hopefully those schedules, if you haven't received them, those notices will be coming out shortly through August the 31st through September the 4th. And then teachers will be engaging with our families and with our students, various meet the teacher opportunities, again, knowing the challenges that we're doing in terms of opening remotely, excuse me. And then the first day of school will be on September the 8th. So what's new this fall? Again, we know we failed to meet the demand and meet the need as we had to abruptly transition to a remote learning environment starting on March 13th, that infamous Friday when our schools closed and have yet to really fully open again. Again, so we issued and will be issuing Chromebooks for all of our students, increased support for in-home internet access, enhanced IT support. So we'll have the Chromebook repair bus that will be available to, again, as an example, to help support a lot of those tech needs that families may be experiencing in this remote learning environment. And then consistent standards and expectations for remote learning across all Red Clay schools. We know that was one of our shortcomings last spring, where there was inconsistency in terms of our standards and expectations. And again, understandably so, as we had to quickly transition and pivot to a remote learning environment. We have, over the course of the summer, provided a lot of PD to our leadership teams. And again, as Mr. Fackenthal alluded to, we welcomed our new teachers back on Monday. And so there'll be more PD opportunities for staff to prepare for remote learning, and that is in a synchronous and asynchronous fashion. And for our community members who may not necessarily be familiar, synchronous is, again, that direct teacher-led instruction, again, i.e. Zoom, and asynchronous is opportunities to either look at screencasting recorded lessons or opportunities to do work outside of that traditional synchronous or teacher-led instructional time. We'll continue Meals on the Go for students, understanding that we are having some obstacles and challenges as it relates to USDA meal waivers. And so we are engaging our congressional members and our legislators, again, to really ensure that we can meet that need. We know during the course of the spring and through the summer, that was a need that our students and families relied on and will continue to do so. But there are some logistical issues as it relates to the USDA and flexibility around waivers for school nutrition programs that we'll continue to work on. And then new health and safety protocols for our students and our visitors as we begin, again, to welcome families and engage ideas around PPE, ensuring that masks will be worn by all of our staff members and guests and students when we get to that point, and then again for visitors who are coming into our buildings. And this is just the general remote schedule and not your remote learning academic schedule, but more or less the office hours and times for schools. Again, grades pre-K to 5 is 8:45 to 4:15, and then our secondary schools times are 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And so as we talk about the phase 2 of reopening, again, a number of families have reached out and inquired, what does that look like after the first initial 6 weeks of remote learning, as we continue to reevaluate the conditions, while promising and seeing a decline in some of the daily rates. As we look at the 7-day rolling average, those percentages are remaining somewhat consistent. And so we're looking at how we can look at phasing in specific groups, specific grade levels. Your survey responses will be critical to helping us understand where the pressures are at respective schools, who will need or will be relying on school bus transportation to help us look at what those phase processes are. And as our young scholar who made public comment, we are definitely well aware of the needs of our students with disabilities, and the gaps in all the learning, frankly, that we know a lot of our students are experiencing. And so we are going to prioritize and really look at how we can, again, phasing in-person learning as best we can. And so school reopening criteria, as folks indicate, what's the science that we're looking at? This chart references what the Department of Health has released in terms of school reopening criteria. When you're looking at number of cases per 100,000, again, we're in the scenario 2 as a state where we have minimal to moderate spread. We know the risk that schools inherently impose if we're just bringing folks back together. That could really trigger us and put us in a position where we fall quickly into scenario 2, especially as many of our students and children, young adults, are asymptomatic, but we also know that we have various staff members, whether that's school nutrition workers, bus drivers, custodial staff, and our educators alike, who are those who are potentially at risk with underlying health conditions. And it's the percent of persons positive. So this chart is really outlining where we are, and it's broken down by date. The last date that was captured was the end of July. You can go on DPH's website where they have a rolling count. And as of 2 days ago, a lot of these percentages, especially as it relates to the new cases, which would be the far left column. At the end of July, it was at 70. That creeped up to 72.3 as of 2 days ago. Percent of persons positive, that was high as 4.6%, so it continues to fluctuate. And the guidance really says that anything below 3%, I guess, would be qualified for full in-person. And so as we continue to think through this hybrid, how do we look at issues around equity? And then the last one is the average daily hospitalization rate, which again was as 32 individuals hospitalized across the state. And we also know that the chair of challenges as it relates to us as a county system. While I'm responsible for Red Clay, we also know the fluidity of our community as it relates to where our staff members may live versus where they work, where their children may attend school versus where they work, and choice in charter, in terms of really minimizing. So really being keen to how we have a consistent approach, ensuring respectively where we live versus where we come to get educated, are also things that we're paying attention to as we look at the phased in reopening process. And again, phase 3 is a day that I truly long for, and I can't say enough. This isn't sustainable, and if anything, I want our communities to hear this. We are about having children, students in school, student athletes participating in summer workouts and camps, and yeah, there are inequities as it relates to youth sports and privatized programs, but we still have to adhere, again, to the DIAA guidance. We have to adhere to the recommendations as best we can coming out to the state to ensure, from the state, excuse me, to ensure that we are maintaining safety, but doing our due diligence that when we do reopen our doors, we're doing so in a way to minimize any potential risk to our school communities. And so again, we long for the day to go into phase 3. The next slide is just some community events. I had the privilege of really learning from a piece of history that's in the heart of Red Clay. The Friends of Hocassin Color School 107 celebrated a special milestone in the journey, reintroducing the Delaware school that brought down school segregation in the early 1950s. Delaware actually had the inaugural case in Brown versus Board of Education, which was actually the only a case out of the 5 cases that made up Brown versus Board that was affirmed and held by the court. And so in celebrating and rededicating Hocassin Color School 107, it was announced in a new partnership that would transform it into a diversity, training, inclusion, and social equity center. And this took place on August 10th. County Executive Matt Meyer signed a memorandum of agreement to pay off the remaining mortgage and rededicate the space as a county park. And Red Clay is proud to support and remain a partner in sharing the national history that is in, again, the heart of our district. During that time, I had the privilege of listening, and the picture on the right, the gentleman at the podium, Mr. Sonny Knott, attended that school, and it was a one-room schoolhouse in 1937. And he's 90 years old this year, and it was just fitting and also disheartening to see that some of the same struggles that Mr. Sonny endured in 1937 are still prevalent and playing out today. And our Supreme Court Justice, our Chief Justice, the Honorable Seitz, recounted his father was the presiding judge over that initial case. And he just shared a quote that I think is fitting for us as a community and all that we're really dealing with, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's social injustice, it's the anxiety about our employment reopening, all of the things that we're dealing with. But he said, history teaches us despite the most legitimate grievances, long-range solutions in race relations must ultimately be found in the hearts of the people rather than the courts. But this is a cold comfort to those experiencing injustice, he read. Nevertheless, goodwill and the relentless striding towards racial justice in our society remain vitally important charges on all of us if our deeds are to match our words. And that quote was given in the 50s. And it's 2020, and again, we still have much work to do. But it was affirming being able to see Mr. Knott share his experience and his hope, and also celebrate how far we've come, but again, much work left to do, and also see his fellow classmates who are on the left picture, who attended that school as well. And just another opportunity to celebrate. We have a wonderful communications and AV department. And so again, we have 3 celebratory moments within our district. We've been nominated for 3 Emmys, and this Emmy nomination is for the Little School That Could, featuring AI DuPont Middle School and the Red Clay School District and the Turnaround Team, along with the Delaware Department of Education. So they had an opportunity to present on a national stage, and we were able to capture that in video. And so we're receiving an Emmy nomination for AI Middle School, which is again another proud moment, I think, for us as a district. Kudos to AI Middle. That was under the former leadership of Dr. Susan Huffman and her turnaround work, now led by Ms. Tasha Fisher. But again, kudos to the AI staff, AI Middle staff, and the leadership, and to our communications and AV department for capturing that. The next one, as school safety continues to remain a priority, the Emmy nomination for the Don't Rush the Red, which was a PSA for road safety developed by Red Clay operations team and our state rep, Kim Williams, District 19. And in their efforts to prevent individuals for bypassing bus stop arms, again, we created a PSA to ensure that, again, our students are safe on their rides as they wait at bus stops, but their rides to and from schools. And that PSA, captured the heart, again, of what we stand for as a district, and it's being recognized by Emmy nomination. And then our final Emmy nomination is A Cut Above, featuring Dr. Terrence Newton and the Warner Thunderbirds for the barbershop that got, again, national acclaim last year. And we were able to capture that in the district, and that is also up for Emmy nomination. This is actually the second potential Emmy that Warner could possibly receive. They received one, I say, a year or so ago for World Without Black People, which was a Black History Month video that was captured again by Rod Macropolis and his tech team with Dr. Fitzgerald, who was the former principal there, and they were able to secure an Emmy. So we're hopefully we can bring home 3 to the district this time around in the second for Warner Elementary. And then in closing, I just want to announce a partnership that Red Clay is forming with the Western YMCA under the leadership of their executive director, Thomas Wallace, as well as the Walnut Street YMCA. Again, as Student Voice is a very big part of our platform and what we do. And what better time than now as we continue to hear our students engage on a whole host of issues. Again, as we had a young scholar just so eloquently share his concerns about getting supports, that voice matters. And so as we engage, whether that's through the academics in terms of what they're experiencing through this pandemic, our high schoolers who are, immersed in voting and have the rights to vote, but their civic engagement, anything and everything, I think, we hear. I have a teenager in my house as well. And so they're actively engaged. And how can we embrace and enhance that engagement? And so we're going to continue to promote student voice through this partnership, again, with the Western Y under the leadership of Thomas Wallace and his colleague, the program director, Ms. Anisha Truesdale at the Walnut Street YMCA to ensure that we're capturing this. And this was just a video to kind of highlight a snippet of what's to come in terms of us capturing student voice.
I believe there's true power in youth voices like mine, because there are leaders, mentors, and people of all ages that are willing to look to the youth for guidance. We represent the future, and it is important that adults take into account our opinions as well. Our voice can only be heard if they take the time to understand us. Sometimes, youth are better at seeking change because they have a fresh mindset and want the ability to shape their own future.
Thank you. And so with that being said, Dr. Bond, again, who leads our Office of Equity and Strategic Partnerships in conjunction with student leaders across Red Clay, those students who have been identified to participate on the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, we'll be working, again, with our 5 high schools and partnering for an October 1st town hall, which will be the second in a series of 6 that we're supporting around this notion of student voice. And that focus will be on, again, on student voice and civic awareness. And that concludes my report. And again, I just want to thank all of those who continue to reach out to give us your insight on all things that are Red Clay. The good, the bad, the indifferent, it all matters. It all makes a difference in helping us inform and make decisions to ensure that we're doing the best we can to support our school community. So thank you for your time. Madam President, turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Green. Great report. And I hope we bring home those Emmys. That'd be great. Okay, so now we go to items submitted by the board. And I don't know if there's any school board committee reports. I think since our last meeting, there's not been many committees that have been meeting, if any. And the next person then would be Dr. Bohm. She submitted 4 different items.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is well. So I do actually have, I think, a few more than 4 items that I'll be submitting tonight. The first is that Jose Matthews and I have brought up the idea of having a student rep on the Red Clay School Board. And so we'll be voting on that next month. And I just would like to say thank you to Ronnie for coming and speaking to us from Milford. And I truly appreciate the report Superintendent Green sent us last week or the week before, where he mapped out what was going on across the state of Delaware in terms of school board representation with students on them. So he talked in the report, he gave us 4 districts that have 1 high school in their district that all have reps on their school boards. He also talked a little bit about Colonial. They're in the process of drafting such a policy. And then he talked about the school districts that didn't have any representation, or the high schools. So there's a lot there, but I think it would be absolutely awesome to have a student on our school board. I was actually on a Zoom conference today with school board members from across the country, and lots of students, many of them from Red Clay and some from our charter schools, magnets, traditional public schools, and we were all talking about the importance of having student voices on the school board, and the students were enthusiastic about that. So that's my first one. My second item today is, so in the school board minutes, the SRO committee was labeled the Institutionalized Racism Committee. That's why it's labeled as such on this report, but I'm happy to have it changed so we can be in agreement with the change that was made in the minutes. So I just wanted to say that there were a number of people who are interested in being on that committee. So if we look at, I think it's board policies at 9044 that talks about ad hoc committees to the school board, it lays out the parameters for who is supposed to serve. And I know there are 2 members from our CEA, and we received a letter from them today indicating who their members would be. And then we have a list of names of people who have volunteered to be on the committee. I don't know if you'd like me to share that publicly, or I can send it to Superintendent Green, but we do have a number of people. So that was the next thing. And then I wanted to get a name for that committee, so I don't know what that committee will be named officially, but a lot of people have asked for the name of the committee. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I'm just looking at my notes here, I'm dealing with 2 screens. So I wanted to talk about the charter school and institutionalized racism. And that's primarily because over the last few weeks and over the last 2 years, I would say, we've received a tremendous amount of correspondence from students and parents who attend CSW. And in the last few weeks, we've actually, my mailbox has been literally flooded with student emails and parent emails. So I know that in 2019, May of 2019, there was a petition circulating at CSW that was racist, and parents and students reached out to the board about that petition that was circulating. After that, parents came to the Red Clay School Board meeting in June of 2019. And as our previous speaker said, Ms. Phoebe Coker also came to that meeting. And they talked about the racist culture and the racist climate at charter. Students talked about personal experiences that they have had. And we received a number of letters that have chronicled those racist experiences, not just in this past year, but in years previous. We've also had a number of social media descriptions of racism at CSW, and those made their way into the paper, into social media, etc. We've had student critiques of the DEI work done by US Squared at the Charter School of Wilmington. We also were presented with the Black CSW alumni demands in July of 2020, which was a very extensive, very well-formulated expression of things that previous and current students at CSW wanted to see changes. And those things included more representation of students from the city of Wilmington, more racial representation, more diversity in terms of their administrative and faculty body. They requested classes on Black studies and social justice issues. I would definitely encourage everyone to go look at that alumni demands list. It's very, very well written and very well documented. We also had the Charter School of Wilmington Social Justice Alliance letter that was sent in June of 2020. And the CSW Social Justice Alliance, they were supporting what the Black CSW alumni demands were. Then there was an article in the News Journal about the Zoom bomb from CSW, and that article was August 6, 2020. And then we also had another letter that just came out 9 days ago, and it was the Black Alumni and Social Justice Alliance. They had collaborated and written a letter, and they were talking about their demands. So we have an extensive amount of information coming out of the school regarding the institutionalized racism that students are experiencing. I have a vast number of letters that were written, and they were sent to the Red Clay School Board, and they were also sent to the CSW board. And I'm going to read snippets from some of them. Definitely not going to read all of them, but I'm going to read you parts of them. So one student wrote, "As a student, I am devastated that my close friends and fellow students have been attacked with racial slurs. Last night's meeting was disgusting in both the graphic images shown and the way the charter administration reacted." Another student wrote, "It's disheartening that white CSW faculty and board members have not even acknowledged our statements or even expressed that they have read these stories and are disgusted. Stories that are occurring right here in their workplace. Perhaps it is guilt or discomfort with this topic, but sitting in white guilt is not productive in creating change and preventing more students from being traumatized." Another student wrote in, "Charter has failed to address the culture of racism at this school since its inception." Another student wrote, "An important part of the Black Lives Matter movement is to take the time to listen to the struggles of those who are discriminated against and to acknowledge their pain. I should have seen adults listening to and recognizing the fears of those targeted. We do blame Charter for their lackluster response because it reinforces the idea that the school does not care for its minority groups and perpetuates the system of inequality among races that permeates Charter's environment." We had another student who wrote in, she had a very extensive letter. She's saying, "I'm writing," and I'm not going to read the whole thing again, "I'm writing to inform you of an atrocious incident of racism that occurred at our last board meeting. After 2 minority students spoke at the board meeting, they were bombarded with hate speech, including but not limited to the use of the N-word and videos of minorities being lynched." The person goes on to say, "Board members were caught on video laughing along to the slurs and lynching videos. For these children to witness something so hateful and racist is unacceptable, and I implore you to look into this, to not only help them, but to help all people of color who experience racism at Charter on a daily basis." The person goes on to say, "The video is not," and they attached a video for us, "The video is not the only incident. There's a lot of blatant racism by the students at Charter, calling the Black students there the N-word and insulting their accomplishment, and many students call Cab Calloway students the F-word. Many people in our building turn a blind eye to it. There have been incidents where administration turned a blind eye to reported hate incidents. We also had DEI training, diversity, equity, inclusion, where even the teachers would mention how they thought it was a waste of time and they didn't want to go. The sentiment seemed to rub off on the students, who also began to not see the merit in DEI. We also had a parent write in who said they were concerned about the physical safety of their child because their child kept bringing up the issue of Black Lives Matter and racism. And they said they were really, really frightened about their child's well-being. So I bring those things up today because, like I said, they're very recent. We've been getting a tremendous number of emails over the last few weeks. This is a conversation that's been going on in our community for years now. And I'm bringing it up because in December of 2018, right, that was 2018, I made a presentation to the school board in our community, and it was about Charter CSW, it was about segregation, and it was about racism. And that presentation, you can go back and listen to the video, the audio, it's all there. It was specifically about these issues because the community had been raising them. As you know, I'm the one person from the city of Wilmington who sits on the school board and lives in the city of Wilmington. And at that meeting, I had a lot of students and parents come to me. I gave the names of 10 articles that specifically had to do with charters and segregation and racism. I talked about the Diverse by Design Coalition, which is doing some great work across the country. I talked about the NAACP convention from 2017, where they actually passed a resolution on public and charter schools and them not fulfilling the promise of Brown versus Board of Education. I talked about the fact that charters don't have feeder patterns for the most part. So really we could use them as a fabulous mechanism to create and promote integration. I talked about NEA work and articles that had been done. And one of the major questions I asked at that meeting is, how can we as a community, because charter school students are our students. They are part of the Red Clay family, right? They're in our building. They're our students. Their care is in our hands as well. What can we do as a community to move forward and address the very real needs and the very real pain and the very real racism our students are experiencing at CSW? We also had another board member, Mr. Jose Matthews, who asked, well, he wanted to ask a number of questions about diversity and racism at CSW, and he brought those questions up in 2018, but the board, 5 members of the board voted against even allowing to ask those questions, but they had to do with the same items like racism, the school climate, what did admissions look like, and I really feel like if we had been able to begin to have this conversation a number of years ago, then perhaps we wouldn't end up in the newspaper. We wouldn't end up with these lists of demands, because we do need to make our actions align with what we present to our students in ideology, right? We have to, they can't be disconnected. There has to be a connection there. And as we can see from our community, the students do not feel as if their best interests are being taken to heart, and that we're creating equitable policy around some of the demands that they are presenting to us. So like I said, I strongly believe CSW is a very important part of the Red Clay community. Like I said, the kids go to school in our physical buildings, right? So CSW students are our students, and we have to figure out a way. I'm talking about CSW so much tonight because we've been talking about them a lot lately. But throughout all of Red Clay, we have to really work on creating policy that addresses racism and that addresses institutionalized racism. Right? And I'm going to continue to push the board to do that. And I'm going to push hard. And just because we don't want to talk about those issues doesn't mean that we shouldn't be talking about them. I said in the previous meeting, we have our students all across the nation in the streets. They're demanding change. They're creating more change in the last 3 or 4 months than my generation has made in the last 10 or 20 years. So I think what we have to do as we move forward, not just the Red Clay School Board, but also the CSW Board, we have to ask ourselves how we take responsibility for the harm that we're imparting on our students. And we are imparting harm. One thing, I responded to every single student and parent who sent me an email, and one of the #1 things everyone said was no one was responding to them. No one from Red Clay was responding. Many members from their board weren't responding. So I think as adults, right, I'm a 51-year-old woman, as adults, we really need to step up, and we need to take the lead in trying to create a climate that systematically reduces racism. So one of the things I wanted to point out is that a number of years ago, when we had a different superintendent and when CSW had a different administrative leader, there were a number of conversations where the Red Clay Board was supposed to sit down with CSW, and we were supposed to talk about racism. And we were supposed to talk about the creation of policy that would eliminate and reduce racism in our school. And those meetings never took place. So our superintendent left. Then our interim superintendent really wasn't someone who wanted to get involved in any of that, right? And now we have a new superintendent. So I hope that in this new terrain, in this new era, CSW also has a new leader, that we begin, but not just to me. The task before us is to create educational policy that directly eliminates and reduces racism. And I was talking to a wonderful young man who's a school board member in the state of Louisiana, and they just introduced a policy at their school board meeting, I think he said last month, that tasked their board with looking at every single policy they had created and they were going to create, and look at it through a lens of injustice and really ask themselves and the community, will this policy move our students forward to getting to a place of greater equity, or will it reduce the movement towards equity? So I think this board needs to do that. We need to do it in conjunction with CSW because we're all one big community. And I think that we have failed our children, but I do want to say I'm reading Eddie Glaude's book, and I would tell everybody to run out and go buy it. It is absolutely phenomenal. The book is called Begin Again, and he talks a lot about the destruction of hope, but then the creation of hope, right? And he talks about James Baldwin. It's a book that focuses on James Baldwin. And I'm gonna say, we have failed our students. We keep failing our students, but we don't always have to fail them. We can do better. We can make the decision to change. So I think we need to act, and we need to act soon. And I look forward to doing that work. Thank you. And then the last thing that I had, or well, actually another thing I had was the board meeting for September, what we were going to do about that, because we've had lots of people talk about the fact that they like the Zoom meetings. So I don't know where we are with that. When I was looking at the minutes from the last school board meeting, in the minutes it said that we were going to receive legal opinion, and I never received any legal opinion, or so I don't know if we got any, but that is in the minutes. You can actually go look at the minutes right now. So that's a question. Where are we with our Zoom meeting for September, or what are we doing? And what was the legal opinion that we received?
Well, the legal opinion had to do with whether or not it could be continued based on Carney with the executive decision. I didn't know that you were actually.
I can't really hear you.
So the conversation was based around the declaration of the state of emergency by the governor, that, you know, with it being FOIA. I know many boards have returned in person and have either provided some virtual mechanism for the broader community. An example, I guess Seaford School Board would be an example where the board met in person, but they would in essence live stream and do public comment in a similar fashion to which we've been doing virtually, where the general public still has the opportunity to submit public comment. And so I think there's a differing, but most are starting to transition to in-person meetings. And our current September meeting is slated to be an in-person meeting at CAV.
Okay. So we didn't get any, there was something that said that we were going to receive legal input or whatever.
It was clarification around the state of emergency declaration, because the conversation as I recall, and I'll go back and look at the minutes, was around the rolling 30-day order that the governor had put in place with regards to the state of emergency declaration. But I'll go back, Dr. Bowman, and revisit the minutes.
Okay.
They're not fresh in my mind, but again, currently the current board meeting is scheduled to be in person in September.
Okay.
Again, if there's a virtual option for the community, there are precedents set where other board members are meeting in person, and then obviously screening it virtually to the community at large.
Okay. And then could you also just give us input as to how we will be screened? Like, are you going to COVID test us before we walk in the room, or is there going to be masks? Just if you could get us that information, that would be great.
Got it.
And another item I had was that we actually have a fabulous opportunity to be involved in the Red Clay student-run town hall on race and inequality. And the graphic is absolutely phenomenal. I would suggest that in the next correspondence that we have with the community, if Superintendent Green, you could perhaps put that graphic in our correspondence with the Zoom link, because we have students who actually participated in our first town hall, and there was really no student input whatsoever. So students took it upon themselves to decide to organize and get involved, and they're creating their own town hall. So it's called the Red Clay Student Run Town Hall on Race and Inequality. And it is a Zoom meeting. It is on the 30th of August at 6 p.m. And I hope that there's a form that you can fill out if you're a student and you want to make comment, if you want to get involved. So I would definitely, I'm putting in a plug for that. I hope our community comes out and participates, because when we can't get it right, the students always manage to get it right. So we should follow their lead. And I believe those are all of my items tonight. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Adriana, could I ask a question? The 30th is a Sunday, so do you think it's on a Sunday?
I'm reading you what the flyer says, and I think Superintendent Green has seen the flyer as well.
Okay, so it's on a Sunday at 6?
Yes.
Okay.
And the student organizers have reached out. We have 3 staff members who will be joining them.
And the flyer is beautiful. I don't know who made it, but it's absolutely stunning. We should have them come work for us.
I have a question, Adriana. When you were talking about the student representative and voting next month,
Ashley, it's really hard for me to hear you. I couldn't hear you earlier either.
okay, for the student representative for the vote next month, are there specifics that you are having, that you want us to vote on in terms of their involvement, or is that kind of to be determined?
So you're really breaking up on me, Ashley.
And so the question was, is there specific involvement in terms of the engagement? Like, what is the vote in essence, or in terms of the level of participation that we're looking to have student representatives in terms of their board engagement?
So I think that everyone should read the report that Superintendent Green sent us. Did you send that last week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, and so the nature of the report indicates, again, the 4 school districts that currently have student representatives on there. Each of those districts have a policy in terms of that interaction. So they've defined that. And as the gentleman came on and spoke earlier, as it relates to the interaction between Milford, I guess they've had the longest standing one since 1972. And again, the majority of those, or all of those districts actually are single high school districts. So it's easy for them to go to their student council president or an individual. We have 5 high schools that in essence would have to capture that student voice. Again, we have the Superintendent Student Advisory Council. We did start in the late fall, early winter with having student reports to the board. We did include middle schools as well. But the question, I guess, before the board, generally speaking, based on that report, because again, we are different and differ from the other districts that have, single high school, to have a single student representative on that board. What in essence will be the process that the board would want to undertake to identify who that representative would be. And then ultimately, I think to Ms. Sabo's question, is defining what that role would be for that student as they serve as a student representative on the board.
So I think that's something the board needs to come up with.
I actually think it would go to board policy.
It would be, it would be a policy. So I don't know,
policy
committee.
So I think what we would do is potentially pass a concept and then send it to board policy to flesh out and finalize, because there would be a lot to talk about.
And it's just such a wonderful idea. I'm so excited to think about students being on our board. I think it's phenomenal.
Go ahead, Ms. Sabo.
I was just saying that was what I was asking, what Kathy said. It would be a topic, like a general, and then it would go to policy committee. That was what I was wondering, what the vote was going to be next month.
So I think the vote's going to be whether or not to have a student rep on the school board.
Okay.
And I just want to share, I'm receiving lots of text messages on my phone from CSW, families, parents, and students who really appreciated the comments tonight on CSW.
Okay, so Mr. Matthews, I think you're next.
Thank you, President Thompson. And thank you so much, Dr. Bohm, for your report. I definitely sincerely appreciate the topics that you brought up tonight and highlighted tonight. in terms of the student representative. The student representative was something that I know that you brought up prior to me even being on the school board, and it was actually the first item of business that I brought to this board's attention when I first got elected to this said school board. It was the very first item, the very first proposal that I ever did in my first meeting here. So it is definitely long overdue to continue to have this discussion. So I'm really excited as well to seeing this practice, this common practice of having student voice on our board. And I'm really excited to see what that's going to look like for us. And definitely very grateful to our colleague downstate, board member Baltazar Lopez, for coming and kind of sharing a little bit about the experience and the contribution that a student voice can provide to a school board. So it's something that's been done. It's been something that's been done for much longer than I've been alive. It's been a practice that they've been doing since 1972, which is really impressive. So I'm just very grateful for their leadership and grateful for having colleagues that we can rely on to provide, you know, their experience as to what that may look like and what that looks like. So thank you so much, Mr. Baltazar Lopez. I really do appreciate that. In terms of, so the first item that I have here is CSW response. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about Charter School Wilmington and where we are with some of the really pressing events that have happened recently. I happen to be on the August 5th, 2020 board meeting, where that board meeting was Zoom bombed, I guess, and interrupted right after we heard from a student speaking out about their experiences. And it was definitely a very graphic and disgusting, disturbing response that we saw to this young lady articulating the experiences that she's had at Charter School Wilmington and speaking out against race and racism. And I really applaud that student's bravery for speaking out. I admire her greatly, and I think that we too, as a Red Clay family, and I am in agreement, this Charter School Wilmington is a Red Clay school. These are Red Clay students, and we do hold some responsibility of making sure that these students feel safe. And in that moment, that student did not feel safe. Our Black students did not feel safe. Our Black, brown students did not feel safe. And I definitely think that we need to make sure that we have our children feeling safe in their school environment, because we know that when we don't feel safe, we're not able to learn and we're not able to reach our full potential for our students. And so I really want to see some action from our board, because we've been talking about race and racism for quite some time, and particularly when it comes to Charter School Wilmington. And thank you, Dr. Bohm, for presenting that. Yes, I did ask a series of questions to Charter School Wilmington's board and to their administration. During that process, I was told that I needed to submit my questions. If I wanted my questions answered, I needed to submit them in writing. That process did not apply to my fellow board members, but it applied to me. And so I followed through with that process. And because I was told that my questions were sensitive and inappropriate. And so in order for my questions to have been answered, the process was that I needed to submit my questions to the board and have my questions be displayed for the entire community to see. And the board would have to vote as to whether or not I could ask these questions and submit my questions. And it was a 5-2 vote. And Dr. Bohm, I appreciated your support that night. And I'm sure that our Charter School Wilmington families and students and our community appreciated our support in trying to start some really tough dialogue. And here we are, fast forward years later, still having this conversation. And I think that we need to really think deeply about when we fail to act the repercussions that we see for our students. We had an opportunity for this board to be able to make a decision, to be able to address the safety of our students. And we failed to do that. And it is extremely disappointing to see that we fail to take that opportunity to make sure that our students could be safe. And I want to thank the vice chair of the Charter School of Wilmington's board, Kate Clemos, for coming out and speaking. Thank you so much, Ms. Clemos. I definitely appreciate you coming to our board and speaking out and keeping that open line of communication. And I want to really move forward collaboratively with the Charter School of Wilmington's board and their administration. And I want to make sure that they feel supported in these initiatives, and that so we can come together collaboratively to create meaningful policy to eradicate racism and the barriers that our students face at this school district. And I also attended their rescheduled meeting, their following, and their board approved a remote learning plan until the end of the year. And they'll be revisiting, from my understanding, that plan to see if, if they could come back sooner, that might be a possibility. So I am definitely very deeply saddened, but I am definitely very hopeful that this board will have some really deep dialogue and some action to what has transpired recently and the years prior to us. I also attended the Reading Consortium meeting that was held last Thursday, August 13th. The DOE was present, and they provided an update from their new Office of Equity and Innovation by their director, John Simmons. And I think that the Department of Education is continuing to see the need to address the inequities we see in education and to address racism that we see here in education. And so they created this new department. They provided some really good updates. They also provided an update on the CARES Act funding. It was definitely a very, very good meeting. Mr. Darrell Green was at that meeting representing our district. And thank you so much, Superintendent Green, for attending the meeting and for always being a voice representing Red Clay. And the other thing that I wanted to mention here that's listed in my items submitted by the board is that next month starts Hispanic Heritage Month. And I would definitely like our board to pass a proclamation acknowledging Hispanic Heritage Month. So I'm definitely very excited about that. Being the only Hispanic board member here in Newcastle County. I was the only Hispanic board member in the state until recently. So I was very excited about that. And I just want to be able to acknowledge the contributions that our Hispanic and Latino educators and staff have given to our district. And that, really acknowledging that their work does not go unnoticed. And I want to be able to continue these acknowledgements with other underserved and overlooked communities. So I think this is a great start, and I am really looking forward to really celebrating the work that our Hispanic community and Hispanic educators have given to our district and to Red Clay. I also want to say congratulations to the Emmy nominees. That is really quite incredible. AI and Warner Elementary going for a second round of Emmy nominations, and for the bus safety video that was done, thanks to Representative Kim Williams' bill. I am extremely proud whenever we meet, national recognition and whenever we get just really prestigious awards, and I'm just so proud of the work that's being done. And I also wanted to say a thank you to Darrell for his leadership during this time. I know that, your team and your cabinet have been working around the clock to be able to make some really tough decisions. So I really want to thank you and thank our teachers and our educators, our staff, on all of the work that they are doing to meet the needs of our students in such a challenging time. So thank you all. And I too am wishing you all a great start to the school year and hope you have a great evening. And that is the conclusion of my report.
Mr. Matthews, I just want to make one note for
Sure.
the board relative to the Hispanic Heritage Month proclamation. It does start September 15th, and I believe our board meeting is September 16th. We will be a day into celebrating that holiday, just as a point of reference, just for you to be aware. And it's the only holiday that starts mid-month and actually runs the course of a month. So it runs September and runs through October.
We'll be right in it, right in the celebration of it all.
Okay, anybody else have anything that they want to talk about?
I just
Okay.
wanted to say one thing.
Is that Ashley?
Yes,
Go ahead.
it is.
Yes. Hi, go ahead.
So I just wanted to take a second and just to say that I really appreciate the hard work that district office, Darrell and his team have been doing. I know that this is unprecedented times. I've spoken to Darrell. He knows how I feel on the decisions being made. He knows that my wish would be that kids are in person, that I'm quite frankly terrified about my own daughter with special needs and how remote learning will go for her. I have worked in healthcare since this started in March, so my perspective is probably a little different than others. So for me, I want kids back in yesterday, but I do appreciate the team's hard work and being willing to answer the questions that are coming out, and I look forward to more communication so that people who have contacted me and who have similar fears about their children with special needs, about what it's like for working families, just that those fears will be alleviated. But I do want to recognize that there has been a lot of hard work on district office and administrators and staff throughout the summer, and I do appreciate the effort that's being put forward for our kids. And I trust that everything will continue being worked on, and as items come up, it'll be addressed. And I just appreciate that hard work.
Thank you, Ashley. And I would echo the thoughts of thanking everybody. Thank you, Mr. Green. Thank you, everybody in the district. And welcome to a new school year. We're really looking forward to it. So hopefully we'll get in person sooner than we think. Hopefully this virus will. They'll get a vaccine. That's what I keep hoping for, the ingenuity of the American people. So with that, and hearing, anybody else have anything to add? No? Okay, hearing nothing, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
That's Dr. Bohm. Is there a second?
Second, this is Jose Matthews.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Have a good school. Welcome to the new school year, and thank you everyone for attending.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.